This episode airs on Sunday after you guys play 100 Thieves. And so we're going to pretend like you just beat 100 Thieves. How does it feel?
So, yeah, I think our game against 100 Thieves went pretty smoothly. Like, me and Jisuke just overpowered Abadar getting closer, and our ball lane was giga smurfing too. Impact was doing his job in the top lane, obviously just winning always, so yeah, it was a pretty easy game.
What champ were you on again?
I believe I was playing Viego, 1v9 champion.
Yeah.
Smurfing.
So now we're going to do the other one.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, that's more.
Dennis, you guys had a tough match against 100 Thieves yesterday. How was that for you?
Oh, it feels terrible losing against 100 Thieves because I feel like we were really the better team going into the game, but they just got really lucky, and I think Closer like stole the Baron or something. Like we should have been able to zone him away, but he was just able to be a little bit better than me that day.
Oh, that's team gap every time.
Yeah, it's rough.
Imagine how crazy it'll be if he actually steals Baron.
It's in your head now.
You shouldn't have said that. It's gonna
We're gonna be in Baron and thinking about that.
Shoot him! Shoot him!
I see everyone out of the pit.
Think career in neutral, mind in full throttle. And I ain't letting off the brakes. A couple friends turn idiots. I swear they lost the faith. It's cool, my chin high. You would have thought I'd be the case. You can Google hip hop and you probably see my face like.
And turn the up and sing along. Put the volume up to 10. Let your neighbors hear the song. It's from me to you. That's what I'm talking about. Singing, we gon' turn it out. Yeah, so turn the up and let the bass vibrate through your soul. Take total control and shout it out. That's what I'm talking about. Singing, we gon' turn it out.
Phreak, I always wondered, where did this Phreak's Basement meme come from, dude?
I don't know if it was intentional or not, but like people just didn't give DreamHack respect. Like DreamHack was like a really big deal when I was growing up. And the thing is, like it was normal quality at the time for esports. Like you're in a big convention, you have like your pipe and drape booth, whatever. You constructed it the day before, and you've got League of Legends Season 1, $100,000 like written on the back of it. And so if you look back like 3 years later, where we're like at Staples Center and like there's a big stage and it looks really cool and nothing's done this before, it's like, oh wow, that looked really bad in 2011. Oh, it's just in someone's basement. Like it's just like in a closet somewhere. So I think that's how it came together. Like I have no idea who originated it. I didn't.
See, that's so funny because like I'm very invested in esports history, and I have a ton of respect for DreamHack because they have such a long tail in esports. And if you would ask me where was the Season 1 World Championships, I would have said Phreak's Basement.
You were a pro Warcraft player, right?
Warcraft 3, I was.
Warcraft 3, yeah. Yeah, because I saw Julian, you commented on the post from like years ago, where it's like you were top 5 in the world at some tournament.
Oh, that's a famous meme, I think.
That's another meme.
Oh, it's a meme.
It's another meme.
It's everything in your life, memes and puns? What's going on here?
Yes. I played in Blizzard's like Season 3 Warcraft 3 like ladder tournament. And so I qualified out of US West as the top spot. I won in the lower bracket, and so I basically got 5th, 6th tied. And I like inted my lower bracket like second round match that I should have won. I should have 2-0'd instead I lost 0-2. Both games were like really, really winnable. I still remember like both mistakes in those games like 15 years later. I know exactly what went wrong. But because I got like tied 5th, 6th, and I didn't really push this, but it became like, oh yeah, here's Phreak, he's top 5 world. Because I tied for 5th at a world championship by beating one person. I beat like the second best orc in
But
Europe.
you qualified.
Huh?
Qualifying.
I did qualified. I was one of 2 American players. The other American player, by the way, got sick eating some bad chicken in Korea and didn't even play.
So my best friend in Australia was like always playing the new game, right? He's always on top of like whatever the hot new game is. So he's playing this game called League of Legends in 2010. So he's like, hey, play this game with me. I'm like, okay, pitch it to me. And he's like, it's like Dota. And I'm like, absolutely not. So for a month, he hounded me about playing League of Legends. I'm like, I'm not playing this game. You told me it's like this game I don't like. Why would I play this game? And eventually I'm like, okay, if there's an esports scene, because I really wanted to get into esports at the time, I'll play the game. Back in 2005, I want to say, I'm like 15, 16, playing a lot of games, but I didn't know anything about esports. I played Warcraft 3, but I played the campaign. And I stumbled onto this website for the competitive side of the game. It's like called WCReplays.com, which turns out Phreak worked out, but I didn't know that at the time. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I never imagined people could like play a game competitively. And I like was going around the site looking at different things that they had. and they had this section called audio commentaries, which back in the day, this is way before like streaming tools and like video making tools like existed, right? No YouTube. So what they would do is they would have a replay file from a game, and then they would record the sound on like Audacity or whatever. And they would like tell you to pause at a certain time in the replay, and then count down to unpause, count like 10 more seconds so you're in sync with the audio, and they would commentate the replay like in time with it so that you could like what they were talking about you could see in the replay, right? That was how it worked back then. Yep. So I remember like downloading audio commentary, oh, this is so cool, like I want to learn about this game, and I hear this voice just explaining way too much about what's happening in this game that I never understood could have such competitive potential. And that's how I learned about Phreak. He was one of the biggest audio commentators on the site. So seeing him years later in 2010 casting this game that I wanted to look at, but I needed there to be an esports scene, I was like, Phreak, I was like, okay, if he's there, that affirms to me this game's a legit esport, right? It's going to get there if Phreak's behind it.
So you have Phreak to thank for your whole career.
Yes. Actually, yes.
Yeah. You want to thank him directly right now?
Thank you, Phreak.
So you don't do the champion spotlights anymore, right?
I do it kind of.
Okay.
So back in the day when I got hired, so in like basically 2010, I did all the game capture. I wrote the script with zero oversight. I recorded the VO, and there were no sound booths. So I'm like literally in a conference room on like a unidirectional microphone, catching all the echoes. I know actually at Season 1 Worlds is when Yorick came out, and we had one of the community interns who's still at Riot doing something else now. Like he recorded a bunch of footage and then like couldn't figure out how to encode it to like anything less than like 8 gigabytes to like send to me so I could write a script for it. And so I came back and I'm like, okay, Yorick comes out tomorrow, and I'm like, well, I'm going to start the Spotlight now. And the Spotlight came out like 5 days later, and Yorick came out really horribly. Like people hated the champion, and people also hated the Spotlight because they already hated the champion.
Yeah.
Which is actually where Tons of Damage became a meme. It was already a phrase I used a lot of, but you know, I built Trinity Force for Tons of Damage. And to be fair, Yorick should absolutely use Trinity Force because he has a bunch of short cooldowns. But so I built Trinity Force, and I do this fight, and I deal tons of damage, and people mocked it so relentlessly that they just said, oh, XD, it's Phreak dealing tons of damage Trinity Force. But no, I love being a part of them. I love voicing them. And yeah, I'm only there for 2 meetings, but I still really enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because so many people probably learned to play the game, especially specific champions, from those spotlights.
Probably.
Because you would see the champion, and you'd be like, okay, that's what his abilities do.
Yeah.
But how do I play him? Like, how do I kill people?
Right.
One of the first champion spotlights I remember was the Vladimir one. My close family friends, we were all playing League of Legends, and every time a champion spotlight came out, it was like just a huge deal. We were like, okay, so excited for the next champion to come out. Yeah, I just remember being on the way to the amusement park and watching the champion spotlight and being really excited to play League, even though I'm at the amusement park. So.
That's great.
Yeah, that's
cool.
like my first one.
Isn't there a Twilight joke in that champion spotlight?
There is.
There is a Sunfire Cape Vladimir joke. Oh
Yeah,
my god, I remember that joke.
The outro, I buy Sunfire Cape, I zoom in and go, and remember, real vampires sparkle. Because like Twilight had just come out. I was so happy about that joke.
I think my first champion was, I played with Tristana, because like, in the tutorial, everyone's Ashe. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is easy. This makes sense. I want to play Ashe. But she wasn't free that week. So Tristana was the closest thing. I remember I was playing with funny enough, I was playing with the guy from Trombonist Brothers, like that awful video of me. But that guy wasn't even a gamer, but I was like, yo, like this new game came out. You want to try it out with me? He's like, sure. And I just remember we were laning together, and I was like looking at summoner spells. So I was like, okay, I've got summoner heal. So like, let me know if you're low health and I'll heal you. And then he had revive, and he's like, okay, let me know if you die and I'll revive you. And then I was like, I don't think that's how that works.
What's Trombonist Brothers?
If you don't know, then
Oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't know.
Okay.
Tragic, basic arithmetic. Sorry, we don't deal with fractions. Someone tell the promoters, don't short of Chucky Atkins. Can I watch ass shake like arthritic hands grabbing? Beat monster, Loch Ness, Bigfoot, Godzilla pain when I open up this notebook.
Did you want to be a caster from day one, or you just wanted to do just
No.
whatever? Yeah.
I wanted to be a novelist, but my parents were like, hey, like that job's kind of sus. Maybe like do something that's a little more consistent, but still lets you write, because I wanted to be a writer. I'm like, oh, journalism's cool. So I went to school to study English primarily. The score I got didn't line up with like their straight English degree or arts degree. So I had to do like a degree that was way easier to get into, but had like science and like business subjects. I had all this other stuff. So I was like, all right, fine. Like it won't be that bad. No, terrible. Like 75% of these subjects I hate. And so I started working just like, like a normal like hourly job. but I knew that's not what I wanted to do like for the rest of my life. And I remembered back, when I was 15, 16, I was like, this esports thing is really cool. Like, that's the thing I want to do. And I just looked for any way to be involved in there, but my assumption was that I was going to be a writer. I knew what a shoutcaster was, but I had zero intentions of ever being a shoutcaster. I was just wanted to be in this space that I like so much.
So you wanted to become a writer, but you became a writer.
Yeah, very close.
How did you transition from wanting to be a writer to getting into casting?
There was a pretty consistent tournaments that would run over one day. So like open entry, single elim, anyone can play, and then you lose, you get out, and then you play until you have one winner, right? I don't even know why this happened, but the support player on the then best team in Australia randomly hits me up on the client. He's like, hey, I'm streaming my games. Do you want to cast them? This is before we had like spectator mode at all. And you could only get it on the tournament realm, and it was like, Timo was there and you turned Fog of War off. It was like the old, we didn't even have that. And so it's like 8 to 10 hours of this tournament, and I'm just casting every single game, and 90% of this cast is like off the mini-map. And like sometimes he'd look at another lane, because he's a support player, actually moved around a lot, but like most First Blood ganks I cast from the minimap, and I just had to like imagine what happened and like kind of make up the narrative of how they died. But like 100 people watched the stream, which is a lot for that time. Yeah. And everyone in the community was like, hey, that was great, like you should do more. So every single week there would be like multiple games of League of Legends being played. And so I just started casting those. And it was that stream and that ladder that got me casting.
That's wild.
So you've been here competing in the LCS, living in LA in America since 2016, I think, right? Do you feel like you're American? And yes, no, why? Like,
no, I don't think I'm American. I kind of feel like I need to at least get my green card before I can even consider that, or like get my citizenship, something like that. And then, I mean, if I get those, then I'll consider myself American. But I really want to stay here even after my like pro career is over, like because I just love everything about being in LA. Like it's really positive vibes.
But I think by the import rule, you count as an NA jungler.
Well,
right?
yeah, I am. According to LCS, I'm American, so
that's right.
That's as American as I can be for now.
Dennis, you're actually one of the few people, you've jungled for both Johnsen and Bjergsen.
Yeah, one of the few.
How do you feel about their rivalry, having been on both sides of it?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like the rivalry, I mean, in my point of view, it was always like Bjergsen favored. I always felt like Bjergsen was just better. But also playing for Johnsen, I could see like what he's really good at. Just pure laning and carry potential, like late game carrying. I feel like Johnsen, also just his movement, it might be a meme now, like his movement was actually insane back then. And dodging skill shots and just mechanically outplaying people, like that was just what he was better than Bjergsen at. But Bjergsen was just always better at like influencing the team, and his team play was just better, macro, yeah.
Like in talking to Johnsen, the man only wants to compete. There's nothing else in his blood but competition. It is actually ridiculous. I didn't think it mattered if he won Worlds like 10 times in a row, he would still play.
I played with Johnsen for a little bit, but it was like right when he was first starting out. But yeah, something that Double If said that stuck out to me was he said Jensen's just like never phased by, even if they lose like 30 scrims in a row going into a stage match, he's just like, it's all good, we're gonna win.
Yeah.
So I like
doesn't lose his confidence.
That's
sure.
a really good mentality.
Yeah.
Just like going up against tougher competition, I feel like Johnsen was always better than Bjergsen, because Bjergsen would give too much respect to them. Mm-hmm. But then Johnsen wouldn't really give a shit about who is he playing against and just do what he normally does. So that's what I thought Johnsen was better at for sure, like international competition.
Mm.
They're both Danish too?
Yeah, they're both Danish too.
Denmark's not this massive country with tons of people, right? Like, why are there so many good Danish players?
I can't say. I don't know.
Let me guess.
That's so interesting.
Is it cold and dark and there's nothing to do but play video games?
Yeah, it is. Exactly. But then Norway and Sweden should be the same, because Scandinavia is pretty much like kind of the same. So Denmark is just built different, I guess.
Did you ever have like a Danish all-star team that you would have in mind? Because there's you. Okay, so obviously you jungle, right?
Back then, for sure, it was me.
Yeah. And who else? So Bjergsen mid, it sounds like.
It depends on what time, because Wicked and Froggen, before me and Bjergsen, they were like huge.
Okay, so if we're taking everyone at their peak, right? So peak Froggen versus peak Bjergsen.
I don't know how you say.
Yeah.
Like Froggen was second best in the whole world, like during Korea time. So like that's pretty freaking good, you know. I don't think Bjergsen was ever like the second best in the world.
No.
What about AD support?
What is Sven Danish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sven for AD.
Oh, okay.
Pretty good.
I can't think of like too many
I
big
don't think we ever
Danish.
had any good ones. Deficio is the best support. That's like terrible.
Do not include that one, please. Can we not include the Deficio as the best? Like, that's not.
He
Don't
was the
give
best
him this.
support there was in Denmark, so.
Oh, yikes.
Well, now that you said it, it's definitely making it in.
Yeah, oh, of course, I know.
Get a job, hit the bank up for a mortgage. Who I'm kidding, man, that shit sounds boring. If I ain't touring overseas, then I gotta be in the booth, breathing life into these stories.
Do you have like a favorite moment from playing at Worlds? Because I think of like
I
Lee
mean-
Sin, you know, the crazy carry performances and stuff.
I mean, 2016 doesn't even come close to 2018 for me. Like, making it out of groups, that was like insane for me.
Did you make it to Worlds through EU also?
Yeah, one time.
You did. Yeah,
Yeah.
SK, yeah.
He
yeah.
played half the group stage.
Yeah, I did. 3 games.
It was actually funny. We were talking backstage a bit, and Kaizen was actually the one who banned you.
Okay,
Hold on.
it's not exactly on that. I was on the team that investigated and then eventually gave it back.
Oh, you're working for Riot back then?
I was working for Riot.
Nice.
Yeah. I remember, like, did you even realize at the time when you made the comment that it was a big deal?
No. So
That's
looking
the question
back,
I had, yeah.
I had literally no idea, because, like, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, where I'm from, people just talk like that, and it's no big deal. But obviously, like, that's just straight wrong, and people are like, they don't really mean it.
Well, he's like young, and clearly he's not
I had
some like.
some growing.
Yeah,
that to do,
it was an honest mistake, I think.
You were making what you thought was a joke, and then all of a sudden everyone's labeling you as like a racist.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, huh.
If the first thing you see about a person is going to be something really fucking negative, then you're obviously not going to like that guy. So that was like my first time receiving like hate messages. And before then, I didn't really, I didn't encounter that before. And that hit me like really hard, because people were just telling me to basically kill myself, you know? So that like hurt me a lot. And I mean, I just had to grow up a lot from it.
When do you feel like community sentiment around you changed?
I mean, it must have just been after I joined TSM sometime, because I feel like they had the TSM Legends episodes and stuff like this, where people can like get to learn who the player is behind the summoner name, you know, and like see more of like who I am as a human rather than just on the screen.
Yeah. I also remember you got in really good shape.
You still look pretty fit, but I remember back then, dude, like, you're in the gym every day, you're huge, but you tried to wear these like really modest shirts. Like you'd wear these baggy clothes, but it's still like your muscles are just breaking the seams. Yeah.
That was a good time, so.
SoulChef days, yes. Of all the teams, not including EG, which we know is going to be first place,
Yes, for sure.
do you feel like 100 Thieves is the real deal and they will be first place by the end of the split?
I mean, that's so hard to say. I feel like TSM and TL are really just playoffs teams, and C9 as well. Like, they're going to be so much better in playoffs than they are in regular split. That's just usually how it goes. So 100 Thieves is more like a team that, I would say in the past, there's been a lot of teams that just do really well in regular split and then don't do that well in playoffs.
Yeah.
TL, C9, TSM, they are very experienced teams. Like, they've won a lot. And so I think they're generally pretty good at recognizing why they're losing when they are. And then I think sometimes with the less experienced teams, like, even if they pick up some wins, either through more accurate reads on the meta or even just getting lucky with the meta, they might not always be able to understand why they're winning, like what their success is actually coming from and how to keep it up. And I see a lot of these teams just like, their success kind of goes to their head and they start thinking they're too good. And then, you know, they lose because they're overconfident and they just tilt to oblivion.
Well, the good news for 100 Thieves is they have a lot of experience across that lineup holistically, and they also have Reapered.
When I went from TSM to C9 and then having Reaper as my coach, it was really refreshing, because then I went from like having really calculated plays only and like not really being able to go for risky plays at all. And then Rebirth was just like, dude, why don't you just fight him here? And I'm like, I'm allowed to just take this fight? I might lose it. And then he's like, yeah, just freaking fight him and see what happens, you know? And I'm like, okay, I'll go for the fight next time, you know? Like,
I have a ton of respect for Reaper. He's definitely one of the coaches I learned the most from. I always found he was really good at getting players to understand each other's perspective. Like, a quote he said when he first started working with C9 when I was there was like, you know, every player is correct in their own mind. And it kind of just comes back to the idea of like, just getting people to understand each other's perspective is like, what did you see? Rather than just being like, no, you're wrong, you're stupid.
I wasn't even thinking about Reaper very much, but I think, yeah, he is very good and he's part of the equation. And then, yeah, we watched the games and like, oh yeah, they're just the cleanest team in the LCS right now. And I tend to believe, like, look, if you're doing this well in the regular season, that will continue on. Like, sometimes that can change and break, and sometimes you can overperform, sure, but that's still gonna be my expectation coming in, unless like something changes in the last moment.
To beat the playoff buffs of Liquid and C9, let alone what TSM might end up being at the end of the split. TL are, to your point about like understanding the fundamentals of the game, TL probably have them down pat the most. And Cloud9, like, I mean, they've got like the defending MVP and perks. Like, that's probably good enough to win if they're both playing well, let alone also Sven's really good, let alone Vulcan's one of, if not the best support in the league, although not right now. And Fudge also has shown like a ton of potential as well.
Fudge has only gotten better since the last time.
Right, yeah. But 100 Thieves are incredibly impressive. And maybe this is a bias thing, but I'm just really happy that FBI is the best ADC in the LCS right now. It is ridiculous to think that someone from my like home city is one of the best players in his role in a foreign league. That's crazy to me.
I would say the thing working against TL and C9 this time around is the roster swap that they made, because roster swaps in general are tough on teams. And again, if it's due to an attitude thing, I think that can just kill the whole vibe of the team and
I think
makes it tough.
They might even like start thinking about that. If you start losing games again, it's like they're gonna bench me again, or like what's going on? Like, you can definitely lose a lot of trust in your org if they like. It feels like not a calculated decision. They just like bench you one day. In my experiences, because on C9 and right now on EG, where they like I've been benched and they've tried out like the academy jungler, like Blabber on C9, and right now contracts. I think at least my org has always made it really easy for me, because they're not like just bench me one day. It's like actually they're telling me like a week or like a month in advance, even on EG, like, okay, we're gonna give this guy some playtime eventually, like it's gonna happen, and it's not like, oh, I'm just benched.
Okay, what if like you're still playing very, very well, but Contract's just like, bam, next level. Like Contract is actually smurfing, and he's the best jungler in NA.
Next
suddenly.
level.
Yeah, I know. It's really, it's just, it's here.
There you go.
Like, would you even still want to stay on EG?
It just depends on how much stage time I get. Okay. Ultimately, I just want to play on stage, and the reason why I left C9 was because they wanted to just purely like 50-50, and I wanted more than that, so.
It feels like this split more than past splits. There's been a lot of academy promotions and like tryouts. Why do you think that's happening more now than before?
The players are really good is the main reason, and the season's really long. So I think it's those two things where teams have just gotten better at using their systems, and they have more opportunity because there's more games, and so they find more room to put these players in. And I do think, especially when a season's longer, like just like resting some of your players is maybe something obviously that happens in traditional sport that I think is maybe a bit underrated in esports.
Is there a lot of value in like hanging out with them, just like more like really good league players to chat with, or like are the scrims like different or special or any way? If you do any.
Yeah, I mean, I think academy scrims is a lot more chaotic, and I mean, I scrim in academy sometimes too, so I know it firsthand. Like the games are just like a lot of them are over in like 5 minutes.
I was gonna say, I swear to God, every team I've been on, the LCS versus academy scrims is the most degenerate shit you'll ever see.
You mean when you scrim each other?
Yeah, because the academy, every academy player is trying to like prove themselves, so they're just pushing themselves like to the limit, like going for the worst plays ever. That's like, if it works, I look way better than this guy. If it doesn't matter. I'm academy anyway. Like,
people think about EG, they think of like you guys are like hyper aggressive, like you snowball games like super quickly, but sometimes you guys kind of blow up late game. Yeah. What's your perspective on like why that happens?
Well, I mean, just the players we have on the team. Like you have Jisuke and Igna, and both of those guys love to make crazy plays. So that's just how we're gonna play the game, you know? Like just trust like the play he's going for. And yeah, I think he plays really freaking well when his team trusts in him and just give him resources to carry the game.
Do you prefer playing with more of a Jizuke style?
I don't know what I really prefer. I prefer winning, so whatever's gonna lead us to winning, that's what I prefer. Okay. Yeah.
Even if it's 50 games of Sejuani?
I would do it if it meant we were gonna win, yeah.
You get that picture on the LCS wall of him being Sejuani.
Sejuani, yeah.
I think Sejuani gets a bad rep. How do you feel about Sej?
I don't like playing Sejuani.
Birds of a feather get slaughtered together with venomous poems that's going straight to your dome. I roam like Romulus, never knowing my home. I'm just a man of the planet, travel the land doing damage. And turn this up and sing along, put the volume up to 10. Let your neighbors hear the song, it's from me to you. That's what I'm talking about, singing. We gon' turn it out. Yeah, so turn this and let the bass vibrate through your soul, take total control. Shout it out. That's what I'm talking about. Sing it, we gon' turn it.
Hey YouTube, I'm William.
I'm Edward.
And we're
The Trombonist Brothers.
Basically, we're two aspiring trombone performers who are gonna share a little bit of what we know with you guys in case any of you are struggling. You grab your foot and you put your arm in the air and go like this. Ba 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 down, ba 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 down, ba 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 touch the ground. Now we can pick up our trombones because we're properly stretched and breathed. So now you should be all warmed up, ready to play.